to 105 and the arena to the prison levels. I am joined with the entire cast as same as last time, same as next time, and I'll just be shooting some questions at Freeman and hoping for some funny business from Scott, Cam, and Duncan because they are the funny ones.
And they're all about business.
No, I thought Scott was the cute one, and then Duncan was the funny one, and I was the ugly one.
No, mastermind.
Y'all can be two things.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know where you got Scott being the cute one. Have you seen that mustache?
Yes, that's exactly why.
Different strokes, my friend. Different strokes.
Cam had a weird attachment to the very hungry caterpillar growing up. Don't yuck there, Yum.
It was relatable. I was hungry.
All right. To kick this off, we're just going to start with some softball question, get the blood pumping, get our hearts moving. And we'll start with one for Freeman because they're all for Freeman.
Yeah.
Any story beats over the entire campaign that we missed that you wish we would have uncovered?
Oh, book 2, my old nemesis. This is actually a kind of a tough one. The levels 5 and 6, the arena and the labs levels, are designed to sort of be more open, like lived in spaces together. And I never felt like I portrayed them correctly. So this section, like, I just don't feel like I did the best job on those 2 chapters, basically. So if you missed anything, it really is in my camp. I give you some examples. The territory stalemate of the flesh warping Sugathi and the devils in the prison level. Like, I don't think that was ever properly portrayed until you got to the prison level. And like, I don't think you ever really understood that was happening. The Warped Brew Tavern, it was called, with all the Morlocks and the Drider and everything in there. And like the fact that they were like, you know, that was a living space and they were waiting for like the honor to be flesh warped. And like hoping to be selected. I don't think I ever properly portrayed that. I also felt like Yasan Kalir, like the denizen of Lang in the prison level, and then Shafkim, like, I don't think they had the weight they should have had, which is, you know, for them two in particular, it's why I re-employed them in episode 100.
Oh, we'll get into them. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I know, of course. But I particularly don't feel like I built up Yasan Kalir's influence over Dorian and Menhimes very well. I did lead up to that. Very akin to like the Volok with his lantern that I talked to it in the last episode. Be like I kind of forgot to do it, and I didn't lead up to it very well. So in short, if there's anything missed, I really feel like it was the result of me not performing my best. This was my weakest part of the production, in my opinion. Not that I'm like all bummed out about it, and I want to put that energy out there, but yeah, I don't think it was my best performance for those 2 chapters in particular.
Well, I can tell you that we all had a blast.
Well, I know you did. It was all combat, so.
Yeah, I did.
Love me combat, simple as.
Is there anything that you improvised, again, across the entirety of Stemming the Tide, that would surprise the players or listeners to know? Like something that's not in the module that you inserted?
I mean, it's really hard to do all the campaign. I mean, it's you know, because there's just so many opportunities to explore there, right? Like I mean, since we're on book 2, I can say that like Carmen joining the party was not at all written in the adventure. So that comes to mind big time. If you defeat him, what he's meant to do is beg for your permission to like flee and never come back. But I remember the Flask of Fellowship coming out. I remember the rolls being awesome. And then he had a full-on change of heart. So he really kind of turning into that road of redemption attempt. And you all allowing it, that was improvised, certainly not part of the adventure.
Nice.
I also knew that if when he joined you too, I actually had in the back of my head, like if he survived all the way to Eurevian and the reveal that he's looking for a Rajani's soul, it would make for a very interesting encounter, or like social encounter. But alas, it never happened. And speaking of that same theme, Glash was never meant to join you as an NPC either. That was sort of off the cuff in a way. It was partially planned. Like I said in the last episode, I have a lot of my improv is built on a foundation. So Glash was actually, if you remember, like you rescued Glash, Falchi Orshendiel, and Jedzelli from the kitchen in the Warp Brute Tavern. And Jedzelli was actually like obsessed with Yusan Kalir, because he had been influenced by this denizen of Lang. That's why he had a missing hand. And you found his body in Yusan Kalir's like quarters later on. And it was the fact that there was a connection there. You had released these three to their own devices. Falchi abandoned them immediately for the Drow. But the other two basically were left to their own devices, and Jedzelli like obsessively tried to find Yusan Kalir, and Glash didn't want to like leave him behind. And I wrote that concept because of the fact that I felt like I never properly built up to Doriana Menhima's being influenced by Yusan Kalir, and I wanted to like add something. You know, as we're coming to that point, and I was like, "Oh, I missed the boat on this," but I can add something to it, and that's why you found Glash, imprisoned basically because he had followed and failed and that sort of thing. So that was like a half improvised sort of thing. It resulted in a really fun NPC, and props to Cam for giving Glash some extra life. It was really fun actually.
Yeah,
it was really cool. That was the first time it was like, oh, who wants to take over? And Cam was like, I got it. And it was like, and we all love Glash. We all love Glash. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to play 2 casters.
Do you have a favorite combat?
I mean, we all reminisce about the Eurevian fight.
Yeah,
where Ruff managed to like teleport through the wall of forest while Krucka was fucking banging on it. That was really cool. However, I think one of my favorite fights was Gilda's death, like because it followed the fight with Jafaki, and Jafaki's fight was sort of frustrating, and I say it, kind of bland. You had Jafaki floating up in the sky, to the ceiling, the Drider climbing on the wall, and only Tulak really had like the proper, like he just cast with spells. At one point, Gilda was picking up books and throwing them because
she's just
James didn't have a bow, and it was like it was actually painful. It was actually a frustrating fight.
Yeah, Bland is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
For real. We're all kind of deflated in that one, and that might have played in the fact that on the next episode, Scoot had Tulak being like, "Fucking Volek, get out of that fucking machine right now," and then immediately activating the next fight with no rest, no recovery, no healing, and everything was on the table at that point. And to me, there's like this, Volek comes out and he's more than he was. He's suddenly become more than the leeches, which is part of like there's like a templates for the worm that walks, where like a worm that walks is normally worms, of course, right? But Volek was leeches, is a unique creature. But then there's also cockroaches and spiders, and I was adding that to his creature, and I was to increase his power. I was combining template options that are provided by Paizo. And so that was like that first introduction to him kind of trying to rebuild himself. But you've interrupted his sort of what I made up as a pseudo flesh warping practice. And then he comes out, you're fighting. There's that moment when Gilda's like gonna shut the door and stand her ground so the others can escape. There's the introduction to the die, the dimensional incarnate enclosure that was co-created by Takale, our patron. There's the Gilda's death being wrapped up in all the tentacles while Krucka and Tulak are actually running away. There's the aftermath. Like that combat, especially for book 2, really stood out to me as like something I can visually picture so many parts of that scene that are just visceral and evocative and like awful and awesome all at the same time. So like to me, that one takes the cake of book 2.
Next section here is something we're calling Host's Insight Corner, and this is where we talk about ourselves a little bit, which is not something we normally do, other than, the intros. So one of the things you as listeners may not know is behind the scenes, I'm one of our 2 body editors, along with Duncan, of course, and the only person who does the mixing. So what that means in this production set is adding the theme, adding the intro, adding the recap, making sure the music's placed correctly, adding the exit theme, and doing all the volume adjustments. And if any of you have volume complaints, I'm the one to direct those to, and I am working so hard to get those fixed for the next campaign. So thank you for bearing with us through at least the first 20 episodes, and then definitely some more we've had some issues with. But I am still learning, and a couple of those lessons that I've taken away, the way we use the term editing is we're cutting down the body to create a cohesive story. And the best way I've found to edit is to make sure you're focusing on the overarching narrative of not only the show that you're editing, not only the moment that you're in, but the entire campaign. Keep those themes in mind. It's like a company's mission statement as you're moving stuff from the episode. And figure out as fast as possible what is pre-processing and what is post-processing. That saved us so much time as soon as we figured out that we should be EQing after. We should be doing noise reductions first. It just takes a lot of pressure off that initial body edit. There's a ton more I could talk about here. Mic etiquette and position, saving before you hit record, learning about luffs, be ruthless when cutting. You can't keep every joke, so you've got some of that stuff has to go, and that's where we're lucky we have that. I think it was Freeman who came up with the idea of the bloopers for patrons. So
yeah, we can't keep them in, but we might as well save them. Yeah.
Yeah, believe it, listeners. I told a joke or two. They just ended up spattered all over the cutting room floor.
There was a few that didn't make the blooper cut.
Well, we can't even blooperize yours, Scott. Sorry. I tried.
Everybody at this table has had a funny bit that wasn't cut out for a blooper too. Like just
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there is an art to like feeling the rhythm of the scene that you're in. If you're in a really high stakes combat, you want to keep the pace of that moving, and you want to keep the diversions out. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And mixing is actually pretty easy from our standpoint. It's just a template that I pull up, and Freeman is just amazing at picking the music that goes for a scene and when it needs to start. And then I kind of just do the rest of it by feel. What feels punchy? What feels good? Where should the song be ending? What part of the song should it be ending on? Should it be a hard end? Should it be a soft ending? This is really where I get to add a little bit of artistic flair to the episodes. And it's definitely my favorite part of the post process.
It's actually really fun to like go back and look at the notes. I have a master file of all of the tracks added to every episode, and that I use regularly to reference. Okay, was this track used? Sometimes I forget. There's over 300 tracks that we had in a library from the same creator to navigate. I was like, was this ever used? It's perfect here. Yes, it was. In what context? And I would literally just rule it out. Like, no, I had to find something different because I want like crossover context. But it's really funny to go back and look at some of like the early notes that I made and how like hyper specific or kind of over wordy they were. And then we get to the point of like, this encounter, here's the track. It's like so much more streamlined over time. And then if there's more to say, I make a note, like there's one here. It's like episode 10, chatting with Tangletop, parentheses, starting in the rooms of books, but nowadays I would just put it down to like chatting with Tangletop, but there's so many more wordy ones. It's a really funny thing to go look at.
And if any of the listeners or anybody out there wants more insight into the process, this isn't a secret. This isn't a closed book. I'm happy to send out information. I'm just not sure how many people are interested in it. So if you want pointers or more information, feel free to pop into the Discord and just hit me up. I'm happy to talk about this all day long. So that brings us to the generic questions. So these ones are the same through all 3 episodes, and they're specific to the book. So what, Freeman, did you love about book 2? What really got your juices flowing?
It was level 7. Like I said before, like 5 and 6, I feel like I didn't perform. But level 7, I felt like I was back in my comfort zone because it went back into like a self-contained environment. Like that's what book 1 was. It was 4 levels of self-contained environments. And for some reason, I flourished with that. I made adjustments later on for book 3, according to how I felt like I didn't do well in book 5 and 6, which was good. So, but it was a kind of a learning the hard way kind of thing. And then suddenly it was okay, I'm back where I like to be, and I can really amp that up. So prison level was awesome for me. I also loved the idea of the devils like continuing their contracts after centuries, because the end of the contract wasn't met. The loopholes either were not found or were found, and they were working towards exploiting them. I think that's a really cool concept. It's so different from the rest of the vaults, where this place has not been degrading. It has not been, slowly decaying over time, or abandoned, or something crazy happened in between. There's no battles. There is that stalemate that's happened between the flesh warpers, because like the devils kind of want to get to the surface if they can, because they're trying to hunt down Rajani. But realistically, it's a place that hasn't been abandoned. It's just been actively lived in, and I think that was really a cool concept to throw kind of right in the middle of this whole adventure. So I love that concept. Barkham Buck, the Aranis, was never really meant to be more than the Smith, but that was a really cool way to introduce Cam, was to like have the deal with the devil.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to make sure we touched on that, because the 7th level, the prison, is where we did first meet Lump.
Indeed, yeah, and we had more or less recruited Cam, a while before. But eventually it was like, you know what, we really could use that 4th player, and we kind of talked about it. I pitched it, and we opted to bring Cam in before the next show, which would have been like a year and a half later, kind of thing. So it was really cool to find Cam's character in that environment, and Cam had lots of cool ideas for Lump. Was really worried about the body horror elements of Lump, but we were all like, don't worry about it, just get in there. Just get in there.
I'm always worried because I can go a little too far.
No, it was such a cool original idea that was really backed up by your ability to create dynamic characters by the rules, so everything that you were doing, and the way that you're playing the character, and the shifting weapon, and all these cool things about the character were actually backed up by in-game stats, items, everything.
Yeah, who doesn't love inside ropes?
They're proving everyone on Reddit wrong that War Priest is not viable. That was like part of your goal, right? You're like, fuck that.
It was literally just antagonistic to Reddit. That is my personality. Just antagonistic to Reddit.
It's so good. Yeah. No, we loved Lump, and I was so excited for a character for the first time to be introduced in the middle of the vaults, because like, and again, there was that flesh warping thing that I never felt like I had fleshed out properly. So, for lack of a better word, but it was a perfect opportunity to be like, do you want to play a flesh warp? I think it was just recently released at the time, if I remember correctly, or not far away. And it's like, oh, it's flesh warp is so cool. I always had it in the back of my back pocket to be like, if someone does die, do you want to play a flesh warp that's escaped, whatever? And it was just, it was such a good opportunity, and I really loved it. I mean, but beyond Lump and Barkabuk, even, like, I loved Jek, the little imp, like his way of scheming. I love the hilarity of the Bone Devil Yagian, like attempting philosophy with Krutka. Like, I set all that up. The whole level was just ripe with opportunities for like the whole cast kind of thing, and it just was, to me, it felt like a return to the glory days.
Level 7 was definitely very solid. Lots of fun.
All right. What, if anything, did you cut from this book?
That's a weird one, actually. In the prison level, there was a unique wisp called Sequishu, which you might remember. I actually removed Sequishu from this part of the book. She was actually this wisp that could travel between. You found like a little secret passage that came out the bottom of a fake floor in one of the stasis chamber prisons in the stasis chamber room, and she was able to travel around and avoid the witchfire warden. But I ended up like reusing her in the sort of episode 100 time bending reflections of the past. When you were like ascending that lighthouse. I just felt like it didn't make a lot of sense for her to be there, and I knew I was planning episode 100 already, and I knew it would be kind of more interesting to like remove that creature and put it elsewhere and add a little more nuance to it, because it was a unique wisp with like a face, you know, and I was like, they didn't really give it much love. I'm going to give it more love, kind of thing. The other thing that comes to mind too is that there was that room in the labs level, I think it was, where everyone was sure you had gone through it, and I was sure you hadn't. And I had said, I have a reason to think that you hadn't. And the reason was that there was a giant bone gladiator that would have formed had you entered that room and attacked you. And we definitely had never fought it. But because I conceded to everyone's opinion that you had entered there before, I also took that creature out and put it in episode 100 just so it didn't go to waste. So that was also on one of the floors.
Gotcha.
Were we wrong? Is that what we're landing on this?
I actually don't remember. I never really went back and listened to the full episode to determine whether or not you stepped into the room or not. But like, to be fair, one of the more difficult things about this whole adventure with all the rooms and hallways is that like a lot of them are like, the moment they enter this room, this thing forms. And that just creates a lot of like, okay, back away, close the door, which is like, it's been a funny joke that we've done a couple of times, but usually you just like put on this like defensive position in a hallway every time because everything's supposed to activate the moment you enter in. And I really wanted to start avoiding that sometimes. So it's entirely possible you entered the room and I just didn't activate the creature because I wanted you to enter it more. And the debate meant more like, did you explore the room? And you were like, yes, we did. I'm like, no, you fucking didn't. You know, it wasn't really about being in it as so much as exploring it. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. I reused the creature. In fact, it actually inspired, like, you might remember there was a little flashback scenes of Belcora's days in that ascension of that lighthouse in the time-bending realm. And I used, you were in a mead hall where these gladiators would gather, and I created a scene out of it. So it all turned out for the better.
All right. There's only one solution to this. Run the AP back.
Yeah, let's go. Roll back the whole tape.
I wouldn't mind another go at small.
Get 8 episodes next time.
New high score.
Nice.
Counts as victory.
The only other thing I could think of is that I did change when you all went back. You backtracked to the cavern on floor 6 to find one of the pendants, Eurevian's pendant pieces. And you were in that cave and you encountered a earth elemental. I put you up against a stone mauler. That was not part of the adventure. Originally, it was a living landslide with a handful of what are called sod hounds. But like you had not only out leveled the area, but we had added Cam to the roster. So I knew that fight was going to be just filler boring. So I was like, I'm going to go find another earth elemental that just gives you a challenge. And that was fun. That was it. So I wrote out the encounter, but wrote a new one in, kind of thing.
Nice. Do you have a favorite bit of player improv from this book?
Player improv. I did make you do a battle of the bands. Which was pretty fun.
Whoa. That wasn't in the AP?
No, it was, but the way it's written in the AP is like, it's basically like you're meant to get up there and play instruments, and the band Shadow Malice is meant to let you borrow their instruments. But like, I'm also kind of like, it's geared toward you failing and then fighting the band, which is like a kind of a cool encounter because it's a kind of a dynamic group of people to fight. But also it's like, how many players, and we only have 3 at a time, are likely to have even be remotely trained in performance? It's kind of stacked against you, right? So that's when I was like, you know what, I'll give them I'll throw them a bone and be like, you don't have to play music, but you just have to put on a performance of some kind. And that's when I allowed you to, like, I don't know, juggle hammers or some shit. But it's like the whole thing is
next campaign we're all a band.
The whole thing was so fucking stupid, but it made me laugh. I just thought it was so funny. So that was a lot of improv for you guys in a really weird way. The only thing I think of beyond that is like, not so much improv as good, interesting like strategy in some of the combats. Like, like when you were in that room with the pits and the Gibdus bounders, those little frog bounding guys, and like their whole thing is to knock you into the pit. And like all you did was just like, well, let's knock them into the pit. Without even really knowing that they were trying to knock you in, you were already trying to knock them in. And I was like, that's genius. It's kind of just accidental, perfect genius. And I loved it.
Put holes in the floor and we're going to kick shit into it.
Yeah.
We are but men.
Exactly. And one of the other things too is like when you did backtrack, you fought the Shanragal behemoth. That was another one because that creature is actually like really powerful for your level. It was a good thing you didn't fight it, but then I think Tulak just flew up in the air and rolled the die, or like rolled the die and then flew up in the air and managed to actually like summon the Void Glutton and stick the thing down with ectoplasmic web, despite the fact that it's gargantuan, and you just trounced the thing. It's just like, it's so ridiculous.
It was Tulok's first time flying too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was. Oh, that's true. Yeah, it was like a big reveal. Yeah, you're like, and he just floats up into the air and was like, the fuck. That's good.
Movement, listeners. Take it away from your GM.
If you can help it.
Spoiler alert for book 3.
Yeah, no shit.
All right, let's turn that question around. What is the favorite bit of improv that you've done for this book?
Oh, I mean, it really comes down to kind of adding custom things, and like I suggested in the last episode, like I didn't really remove much. And if anything, I added stuff or I swapped things out. So, improving is a tough one. Other than like some role play, something that comes to mind is that I actually created a semi-custom trap in the hallway before encountering Jafaki. So like you went up against this like sort of bleeding like spirit, if you remember, and that was actually inspired by the blood in the lighthouse, the fact that you had avoided it. I took a trap from elsewhere and like reworked it a little bit and just made like a sort of horrifying scenario based around like the horrifying practice of flesh warping. So I thought that was kind of fun. I actually almost made that encounter way worse because there was a creature called a Flesh Forged Conformer that can really take advantage of the fact that you're bleeding, and that haunt made you bleed. So, but that I recanted it quickly, probably just shortly before the session, to be honest, because it looked like it was going to murder somebody, maybe 2 people. It was like kind of a bit too much. I actually did a lot of work on it, and then I was like, you know what? I think we were already planning Cam to come in. I was like, I just gotta wait. It's too much. So I did that. I think one of the cooler things I did do was I actually added the Hellbound Attorney to the Eurevian fight, and I loved using their ability to like list off the crimes, and I used it on Ruff, and like the page made no sense because Ruff was the Shrika.
Oh yeah, that was excellent.
A fun one. Yeah, it was just kind of too perfect. Yeah, and the Levelock Devil that was encountered when you discovered Lump, that like big like sort of mechanical devil. That was not in the adventure. I added that to like because it was like another room just filled with Mulven Tox and
Dresh cans,
yeah, and it was just like I was like, yeah, I already fought those. Like, I was just kind of boring. It's repetitive creatures, and I wanted something new. So,
Well, it worked out in your favor. Well, speaking of adding things, Night of the Howling Moon. I just want to give you some space to get after that and to talk about it because it was so good. Like that is a defining moment in the adventure for me.
Okay.
And I just don't think I'm ever going to forget that. Just the way it played out, the pace of it, the way you made us keep pace. I just thought everything about it was excellent. So this is your opportunity to humble brag.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first inspirations for doing that was, I mean, like I said in the last episode, right out of the gate was like, you know, as soon as you kind of reawoken Jaw, you know, in his memories, I knew I was going to do something with it, and it was going to make him attack. He's feral, he's full of regret, he's messed up, you know. But you might remember that in that pavilion, he had a white wolf next to him, or like a wolf companion, and he actually is like, he's designed around fighting with they have like a synergy with them. And then I realized it's like I could play with that. I could make him go back, and like I basically upgraded the wolf to like what's called a winter wolf. I think it might have been changed in the remaster. I don't think it's called a winter wolf anymore, but this winter wolf, it was like blasting cones of cold at you. It was really cool. But then that was the first idea, and then the idea turned into like, oh, let's have this werewolf going full feral and drawing other canines to the town. So that's why like the Yeth Hounds were in there. That's why the Hellhounds were in there. It's like this. I didn't have a lot of reasoning behind why all these things conjured up and appeared, but I really just wanted a canine themed event, basically.
Just as dope as hell is reason enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And
the way you kept the pace up, it never gave us an opportunity to think about any anachronisms. Like it was just
right. Yeah, it was just go. It's like you know there was danger. I had a lot of fun writing things like Alamora Engelholtz had the kids on a night school outing to look at herbs and flowers, but then her instincts kicked in and she brought them all to her home. You know, like you found that, if I recall correctly, like Magilloy, who died by the end of that event, like saw something going wrong, and immediately her instincts were go find Wolfsbane. We might need it. You know, and then she ends up dying at the hands of Jal as a result of being found out in the woods, because that's where Jal was, you know, and like, but that also ultimately gave you an opportunity to recover from the curse. You know, I really enjoyed like it just throwing in like, oh, Rab Turtle's having a party, and you go knock on the door to make sure he's safe, and the butler's a fucking prick, you know, like it was just like such a variety of options, you know, and the whole thing. And like Lazda and Brelda Vankerville, and Brelda's like the badass with her crossbow behind the bar, like waiting, you know, for more events and more scary things to happen. Like I was really fun to write. I think it was just really cool to like, and I think it was one of those things that like really anchored you all back to town. I think, you know, where you were, I wanted to force you back to town before the next firing of the Gauntlet, because you had been avoiding it. You were getting longer and longer in your waiting to go return. And I was like, no, they need to really care. They need to care. And I really wanted to force you back. You know,
we cared too much.
I do care too much. I loved using Warlewin, like the druids, to like send you the message, because Warlewin's whole thing is to recover from Jal's betrayal, to bring trust back in the town. Like, so they're involved in like that watch and that sending that message and the warning of the event. You know, I went well out of my way on that one to like involve so many little things. Yeah. And I'm really happy with that one.
If you ever have the ambition, I think that maybe formalizing this is like a supplement.
You've mentioned to me that before. Yeah. Yeah.
It blew me away. It's one of the most fun I've ever had playing in a role-playing game. Because there was all the context of these characters that we have played for ages. And then there was just this one shot inserted into the adventure. Like the juxtaposition and the tie-in both worked so well for me.
Totally.
Cool.
Yeah, and it did such a good job of like making the characters in town from NPCs, for lack of a better word, into really fully fleshed out characters by being able to see them in action.
Even the ones that like you almost never interacted with the whole adventure, right? It's like they're still there, they're still part of it, you know. And I love that. And like just a quick side note, one of the things I love the most that I always remember is Tulok launching magic missile from like hundreds of feet away, because
Yeah.
He was so far
technically
away.
he could see the target and it doesn't miss. It was kind of badass. Yeah.
Awesome.
Couldn't jump over the broken bridge though.
Oh, I don't think any of us did.
Lady Gila floundering in there with heavy armor.
Yeah, we were unlucky with bridges early, and that continued.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
The real enemy is bridges.
Get yourself a ferry, listeners.
or if you were Scoot, just be another fucking feather token boat, whatever. Just toss it wherever you want.
Get yourself a magic swan boat, listeners.
Yeah.
That's the right move. All right, let's dig into book 3 specifically.
Okay.
And one of the characters or enemies or whatever you want to call them that's been living rent-free in my brain since we encountered them was Siora Fallowglade from the arena level. This undead, incorporeal, dope-ass two-sword looking ghost,
Really cool
is there
artwork.
any more to her?
Yeah, she was
I
a
want
greater
more.
shadow. There's not much more, to be honest. It is kind of an interesting one though, because it was a really mysterious area. This was just before you actually got the message from the druids about the Howling Moon event. So Siora Fallowglade was Belcor's top assassin, basically. But she basically, as soon as Belcor was defeated and everything went into chaos, she tried to flee, and she murdered her way through this security checkpoint. It was the area that was called. It's basically one of the hidden entrances that they had to keep secure. And she murdered a couple guards, but one of them literally just got a lucky blow off and mortal wounded her, and she died. That was it. She became a shadow because she's an assassin, and that is the reason why in her chambers you found a poison codex that was like crumbling. It's because she was an assassin, effectively. But from what I remember, what I briefly looked at, that's the majority of her story. It would be nice if there was a bit more, but that's it.
I mean, that's enough for me. I love the idea that she's just Belcor's assassin who couldn't make it out.
Yeah, that's kind of it. And there's a lot of those little things throughout the vaults, which is good. Yeah. But the fact that she's such badass artwork, it would be nice if there was a little more to it. But do you remember the first shadow you fought? That was they were called the Major Domo in level 2. That actually
in the Grand Hall, right?
Yeah, she was just in charge of the servants. She was like the servants' master kind of thing. But
right,
that's it. Yeah.
Speaking of backstory, the twins from the exposition that we found in the elite viewing room on the arena level.
Yeah.
Did you write all of that, or was any of that in the AP?
It's a combo. In the AP, in that room, you encounter 2 poltergeists, and the room is an absolute mess because they in life were like aristocratic siblings that just constantly squabbled. Is kind of almost exactly verbatim how it's written. And even in death, they were constantly fighting. So like the fact they have this like telekinetic ability to just whip things around as poltergeists. That's why the room is an absolute mess. They're just literally constantly fighting. The exposition, however, that was all me. I mean, they all were, but I used that room as an inspiration because I thought it was really one of the things that I felt was really cool about the arena/labs level was that it was a way. It was a place that was originally meant for Belcora to impress potential investors, contributors to the cause. And so the viewing room existed to show off either the incredible warriors that she had or the incredible flesh-warping creations she had created or just the incredible power she had in general. And that was sort of the purpose of the arena. Like, why is there an arena down there? Why is it, even when you fought the Straken, and like, I mean, we go back to like book 1 where it's a book where you fucked the Mercian, like the pugilist guy that wanted to fuck you up, you know, like he had the victor over his head, you know, that symbol. You know, why was that all there? It was all testing grounds for like the best thing she could find to attack Absalom with. Like, if you really go to the prison level, you know, the Gibbering Lathers, the Gonhatines, the Driders, they're all in these stasis prisons because they are the elite. They are the ones that she is going to use, and she's demonstrated them. And so I love that concept. Like, how do you convince someone to fund your revenge mission? You know, and you bring in these aristocratic, spoiled little brats, and you tolerate them until you convince them to give you money. And like, that's Belcora. Patient, vengeful, and horrible, you know? And so I had big inspiration just from that one room alone to like give an overview of what's going on in that level. So that, if I wasn't happy about how I did the whole level, I'm at least happy about that part.
As you should be. Speaking of Mercian, who we first meet in episode 72, as many times as it takes, is there any more to that character as well that you'd like to share? I don't know why these characters from these 3 levels really stood out to me, but
yeah, sort of. That level is a bit odd. He's a skulk as a creature, and skulks are usually like kind of cowardly, run away, hide in the shadows. Jedzeli was a skulk as well, the one that like was following Isan Kalir and had lost that hand. But for some reason, he was obsessed with like being the world's greatest fighter. You know, he's just like, and that's just him. That's the story they give you. But he knew that Vishari, which is the owner of the tavern, it was an Erdefon, one of your earliest examples of an Erdefon. She's a pugilist, is the sort of what the stat block gives you. So she's also a really known, like, you know, fist fighter, basically. And if you get in there and actually talk to him, he really wants to have a match with her. He wants to fight her and see who's better. But he doesn't trust you unless you have her favor already, which is like, go in there, win the Battle of the Bands. She favors you a bit, kind of thing. And I can't remember the order of operations. It was either you hadn't been in the room yet, so he didn't trust you, or you had gone in, heard the cries from the kitchen, slaughtered the whole area, you know, and like now you had no leg to stand on as far as Mercian was concerned. I don't remember which one happened first. What I do remember was that like part of his thing is he knows he's outmatched when you're all in the room, so he won't fight you one on 3 or 1 on 4. But he tries to get past you. You might remember this part. He tries to get past you, and I think that's when you guys attacked. And then he tries to release the ghasts that were trapped in the room prior. I
think we might have killed those ghasts.
You systematically destroyed them
one by one.
Yeah, and then he just tried to open these empty cages.
Real psychos.
He tried to open it and it failed, and then he just got murked. Yeah, it was really funny. Yeah, so you all had really managed to overcome that encounter in more ways than one without really understanding the whole premise of the counter. It was really kind of, it's not unlike Boss Strong in a way. It was really funny.
Another encounter I ruined.
Not a crazy amount of nuance to that encounter, but it was a couple little fun facts in there, I guess.
That's great. That's what I think we're after with these eps. Sticking with the arena level, that black pudding that we mentioned before that Gilda just shut the door on, how bad would that have been?
That's like the question of the previous episode about Korlak, the bearded devil. It's like, it's kind of depends. At that point you were a level ahead for you know, so you were on level 5, I think, and you were level 6. So probably a moderate encounter. If you were the appropriate level 3 PCs, probably a really difficult one. Though that being said, it's oozes can be tough because in particular you were in a very tight space, and this particular black pudding was an alchemically altered one. So it wasn't just a black pudding; it was called a viscous black pudding. So it not only has the normal ability to split if it takes slashing or piercing damage, but you might remember that it was actually covering the whole floor and then suddenly formed up into like something smaller. And as a reaction, it could just change its shape from either medium, large, or huge. So it could really block your way if it got anywhere around you or boxed you in, and at reaction level, basically. And if you kept slashing or piercing it, it would just keep splitting. And that shit is so dangerous because they lose their hit points by half, but they're a full power ooze at attack and defense. So it could have been really, really bad. I think the tight space was in your favor in general. And then the closing the door was just too funny to not let go. You know, it was just too good.
That's one of my favorite Gilda moments for sure.
Oh, it was so funny.
All right. Duncan asks, Long Saddle and Tamley Tandervale. They fucking?
Forget about that.
Because we're shipping them.
Only in your lonely dreams, buddy boy.
Oh man, no, we got the show's over. We got to start the slash fic. I mean, just yesterday, Lusum said in the Discord, a little crucka slipped into Harold, and I think he was talking about voices. But
That's
I'm going to
true.
take it slash fic way.
Make it weird.
Get it going, listeners.
Yeah. No. Short answer is no.
Inquiring minds are sated.
But you might remember that Tamley is an ex-member of the Grey Corsairs. She is a proper badass.
Yeah, and Long Saddle's into that kind of shit.
She got no time for that fucking ex soldier from Absalom.
That mall security guard.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, he's a medium fish in a small pond at best.
Rude.
I know you already touched on it a little bit, but at what point did you know that you wanted to like expand the storyline between Shafkem and his son Kalir?
Oh yeah, it was in that same area of like level 7 starting, bringing Lump and Cam, adding Glash to that element and Jidzelli, and then planning episode 100. Part of planning episode 100 too is this is a big reveal, I think, to the listeners, is that James had opted to write Zori out of the story. That was a James choice, and I was trying to roll with that. And so episode 100, like that the whole event that happens before episode 100 and how Ruff comes in, that was a big part of that whole thing. And I realized that because I didn't give them much love in the way I thought the adventure meant for them to get it, I just knew that I had to find a way to do it. And I thought, what better way than to have these two quite intelligent creatures that were working with Belcora, but are not under some kind of contract like the Devils are, not like strictly speaking. They are their own, people. But they're here for either the fun of it or the money of it, or they have some weird, reason to just really be pushing these like, awful envelopes with Belcora. And, but I thought it'd be really cool if they were like, you know what? She's not entirely to be trusted, and we should really keep it under our hats. And maybe at least two sets of eyes are better than one. And that was what I tried to play up in episode 100 with them. I wanted to give them more credit for their intelligence, even before Belcora's death and demise, before their current situation. To give them a little extra love of like, you know what, we weren't just idiots along for the ride because she told us to. So yeah, I was right in that area of like, I didn't feel like I did a good job, but I was feeling inspired to make up for it.
Well, we loved it. And since you kind of brushed up against episode 100, I want to make sure you have space to talk about it, because just like the Night of the Howling Moon and that little one shot we did on the graveyard where I got to play Clort and we all got to play different PCs from around town. The stuff that you've added to this campaign, I think, is a real standout for everybody in this room. So I just want to make sure you have time to talk about episode 100, anything you didn't get to in the decompress.
Yeah, episode 100 was complicated. It wasn't like I had less to work with than the Night of the Howling Moon. The Night of the Howling Moon was all about grounding you back in Otari, using all of the smaller things I thought you would never discover as influence and inspiration. Episode 100 was its own beast. It was a separate thing. It actually, the probably the primary influence was when you get to book 3. I didn't like what was written about how you're meant to find out about the importance of the lenses. The lenses don't appear till book 3. And to me, this is a bit of a failing of the sort of 3 different author, 3-book structure. And that there's no reference to lenses until book 3. And I certainly hadn't made them, even though I knew they were there. And I realized that how you're supposed to find out about them, which is effectively that, you know, that cavern that Tulok had a whole fit in that like led up to like the Gug.
Yeah, it was a named Gug, right?
Yeah, that's all the adventure provides you with. For the most part, that's like the main part. And to me, I was like, it's not enough. It's not enough. We could do better, you know? And I just had this awesome idea of doing, like, I was inspired by the structure of the whole adventure. And like, you have past, in between, and present. And that's what I used for episode 100. Past was the detectives. In between was what Raphael had been up to since he was written out of the adventure. And present was all of you exploring it. And what better way to do this than with our test recording characters, you know, and especially Uncle Arthur connected to it all. I'm immensely proud of the shock value of the off-screen death of Raphael and how it all came back. And then my favorite, probably one of my favorite characters that James has ever played. You know, like, I can't believe how well it worked out. And I'll tell you, like, episode 100, I was writing a lot of that as we were going or just before the sessions. I had so much structure done, and I had cut so much shit from all this stuff. I wrote entirely too much and removed entirely too much of it. It was a tough one to get through. But it was, yeah, I'm so happy with some of those motions and like all of that shit with the detectives. And like by the end of it, even Scott just going like, I was so fucking into that, you know, just like losing his mind. Yeah, it's like, it was really cool. It was way more work. But it was really cool. I'm not sure what else to add. You know, I was trying to figure out, you know, what are the gates around Absalom? Oh, the one that's closest to Otari is the Sally Port. What do I know about the Sally Guard? Like, I was just going so ridiculously into it. And like, you're just lined up to get in the city. And I'm like, I've done so much research just for the scene where they come up and ask you questions, you know. It was a crazy amount. It was a ride.
When do we get the full backstory on everyone's favorite French librarian?
I need 3 seasons in a movie.
One of my favorite improv moments for myself. That was it's up there.
We're still hoping she gets her own spinoff.
We're still hoping Freeman's going to be allowed in France someday.
Breaking Bond. I will have to say that one of the things that made me the most sad about Tulok dying was having so much about the Delarice family revealed and not being able to
directly interact with it.
Yeah. That was a really fun one too. You know, like it was always so funny for us when we realized that Scott had written the last name was Delarice, and it turns out it was a joke from the GCN podcast and Adventure Zone. Oh, was it Adventure Zone? Adventure Zone, yeah.
It was GCP.
Was it?
Clint's spiritual weapon was Delarice or something
was
like
it?
that.
Oh, maybe it's both.
Yeah, it's probably both because I've never heard that.
All I know is it's like a double meta level thing to like a real life actress, you know? And like Scott didn't realize he had pulled it, and it was so funny. And I was like, how can I just make this ridiculous accidental reference more badass? Okay, how about a fucking assassination group, you know? Like something so crazy. Yeah. And I loved playing with that, like the history that is in there with like, with Belcora's family. Was she still a child, you know, is like if you don't have like the aberrant blood in you, if you're not a part of this family, you are nothing. Like so abusive, so not racist, but like what's that, like like
Classist.
classist. Thank you. It's just so brutal, right? And I was like, what about all these half breeds that what they would consider half breeds, these illegitimate children that they're not ashamed of, but they'll treat like shit. Like, let's just make it that, you know? And I thought, you know, I convinced Scott to make Tulak an aberrant sorcerer just like Belcor was. Why not make him family, you know? And like surprise him with that fact. Yeah, it was cool. So if anything, I think that if you compare the Howling Moon with episode 100, and Howling Moon is so built on bits of the adventure, and episode 100 is built on the stories that you guys created for characters, you know, which made it harder, but like I think more gravitas and more rewarding.
It really shows your diligence to the players as a game master, and I hope at least some of our listeners are lucky enough to have a GM who will build in world connections like you have, specifically through 100, through the Howling Moon, through again that little one shot we did. I believe it was in book 3 where the second gauntlet going off. Those breaks from the main story were just excellently timed and so well timed in, and I don't think I can give you enough credit for it.
I've already got plans. for the next story. It's gonna be great. Yeah. And I'm sure some will be dashed when someone dies, but you know, I'm still writing them down.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, any of the rest of the cast have any poignant or specific questions they want to get at Freeman with for this book?
I still don't understand why everyone was all pissed off that Tulak left the stupid prisoner in the stupid little locked door. Like it was such a big deal.
You really needed to get that off your chest, huh?
Of course, Scott is talking about the tiefling. I'm not blanking what they're called now in the remaster. Simeni, yeah, whatever the name was. Yeah, I mean, she's got a little extra story technically. She was kind of just an unscrupulous bounty hunter. That's for sure. And she was actually meant to hunt down Rajani, which I think she told you. And she failed and she was imprisoned. The part that I didn't tell you, I don't think, was that she was actually outwitted by Rajani. And he managed to hustle her out of her magic armor, and he was wearing it. And then he left her out. He left her out on a boat, a leaky boat in the middle of the inner sea to die. And she managed to swim back. But her time had run up with the agreement she made with Eurevian, so that's why she was imprisoned.
Well, I'm glad he got burst into a fine mist.
Was it that Rajani?
Yeah, no, yeah, it was. Yeah,
Wow,
the same one. Yeah. So she was hired to hunt him down for his soul, and she failed. And he was not kind. Yeah.
As a follow-up to that, and if we already know, and I just forgot, you can stop me here, but why was Eurevian going for Carmen Rajani's soul so hard?
I feel like I knew you were going to ask that question. He never revealed it. It's actually not, as far as I remember, it's not really in the adventure. It's that he owes, it's a part of one of his own contracts with another devil to deliver the soul. And to him, it doesn't matter why. It's like, oh, what can I do to elevate myself in the society of devils? Okay, I want you to do this. If you sign a contract for this soul, I'll make sure that you rise up. And you're even like, sure, no problem. Sign off. That's pretty much it. You know, real cold-blooded, as it were. You know, just like
Business.
The soul of Rajani has no value to Eurevian personally, only professionally for someone else to rise through the ranks.
Huh?
Damn.
Yeah.
Double thinking selling my soul now.
Yeah.
That contract's binding, Duncan.
I always thought it was really cool how much there was attached to Carmen, you know, and I was actually, there's a part of me that was really excited about him following, if he survived for longer. Like it would have changed the dynamic of level 7 quite a bit, I think. You know, just the vibe, not the outcome, but like the vibe would have been like, you know, encounter Sinemi, and he would, you know, they would have known each other, you know, and he would have been shocked that she survived, you know, and she would have tried to throw him under the bus, and that might have created some turmoil amongst you all, It's and then encountering Uravian. Like Uravian was trying to convince you to find Rajani. I don't think you ever revealed that he died, but if you had, Uravian would have oh, I know a ritual, but I need you to perform it so that you can pull the soul to the right spot for me, kind of thing. But if he was just there, he would have been like, fuck it, you're all dying now. I'm taking that guy's soul, it definitely would have changed things.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for giving us this insight behind the show. I always find these episodes absolutely fascinating, and we hope the listeners think so as well. We do have a mailbag episode coming up in a couple of weeks. I don't know if we've recorded it by the time this is dropped, but please feel free to throw your questions at Cam in the Discord. They're kind of managing that. But until then, thank you so much, Freeman, and thanks for the rest of the cast for being here and giving a little insights as well. And we'll see you listeners again in a week with the third book.
I can't wait.
Woo.
I can't wait. Stemming the Tide is an actual play podcast of the Adventure Path Abomination Vaults and is produced by the Uncharted North Network. Stemming the Tide uses trademarks and/or copyrights owned by Paizo Inc., used under Paizo's community use policy. We are expressly prohibited from charging you to use or access this content. Stemming the Tide is not published, endorsed, or specifically approved by Paizo. For more information about Paizo Inc. and Paizo products, visit paizo.com. Music is composed by Will Savino and artwork by Greyhood. Stemming the Tide is recorded remotely using Foundry Virtual Tabletop. If you wish to connect with us or support this project and projects to come, we can be found at unchartednorth.ca, patreon.com/unchartednorth, and on all major social media platforms. Links to all credits can be found in the episode description and our website. Thanks for tuning in.